So once you have your op art background drawn in and your 3D forms placed on top of it and everything is traced in Sharpie and all of your extra pencil lines are erased, you are ready to start shading and coloring. It is up to you if you want to do your checkerboard pattern first with your Sharpie and then color on top of that, or if you want to start shading in and decide later if you even want to do black in your opposite squares or your shapes, or if you want to continue with the same color in each space or in each section. It is totally up to you how you do this. I'm just going to show you how to shade them today to optimize your 3D effect in your optical illusion. So anytime you are shading these optical illusions, the places that you want to pop out at you will have the lighter values, and as they go back into space or curve around, they're going to have darker values and shades and colors on them. So I will show you one of these cones first and continue from there. You can see I've already started this, and I want my cones to have a wavy effect. So in one section, I made the darker areas in the middle, which I'm hoping will enhance kind of a curved down effect. And in the next section, I've made my darker areas along the side and put a highlight in the middle, which I'm hoping will enhance kind of a popped out 3D effect. So in order to shade these, anytime you're shading, you want to always keep your crayon lines or your pencil lines or whatever medium you're using. You want to keep those close together so that your shades look as solid as you can. To really enhance the effect, you're going to shade in the direction that you want your illusion to appear. So if I want this to be curved, I'm going to shade and fade in a curved direction, and my line direction, my coloring direction, is going to mimic that of the curve that's on my paper. So I'm pushing harder in the middle, and I'm lightening my pressure up as I get out towards the edge, which will fade out, ombre if you will, your colors. I personally like to start in my darkest areas first and fade from there. That's a personal preference of mine. You can start in your lightest section and work up to the dark if you want. The harder you push on your pencil or your crayon or whatever it is, the darker your value becomes. The lighter you push, the lighter your value becomes. If you want to enhance the dark and light values within your coloring, you can choose a pencil or a crayon that complements whatever your main color is, that's just a little bit darker or lighter than the shade that you're going. So I want my dark areas to look a little darker, so I am simply mixing a little bit of this darker blue shade on top of my design. For my next section over, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm coloring the opposite spaces, and I am going to start with dark along the sides, and I'm going to fade it up into light. You can see that I'm not coloring in an arc anymore. I'm just kind of laying a base down now before I start to get my direction in so that I can see where I'm going, and it's easier for me to fade if I'm working straight up and down. So then once I start to enhance that, I will put in some of those direction marks so it looks like it's curving back and forth. You want to just keep your lines nice and close together so they don't end up looking scratchy. And again, I'm just layering up my crayon so that my dark areas become darker and my light areas stay light, which will enhance whatever 3D effect you are trying to pull off. So that's how you shade a cone. The outsides and the insides go darker in every other section. Once you are ready to shade, if you are doing a sphere, same thing, the area that's popping up out at you will have a lighter value on it, and the area that's farther away from you will have a darker value. Again, I prefer to work with my dark areas first and fade into my light areas. That's just easier for me. However you want to do it is totally up to you. I'm enhancing that with a darker colored crayon, which will make these pop even more. I'll come here and I'll do this one next so it's a little bigger and you can see what I'm doing. So I'm pushing hard. My crayon isn't really showing through my Sharpie, which is awesome because then I don't have to try to stay in the lines. And I'm going to be able to kind of slowly fade in toward the center and not have to worry about trying to do my fade and skipping spaces. Again, the more you put, the more layers you put, the darker your values become, and the harder you push, the darker your values become as well. So I'm pushing hard around the outside edge and lighter through the middle, and that will make these really start to look super three-dimensional as I'm working. Trying to go quickly, but I want you to see the overall effect and how much of a difference it makes once I add my color on. My goal is to fade these nice and slowly so that they really have a 3D appearance. And again, if you want to even enhance it further, choose a darker shade or complementing color and layer them up. It adds a little bit of richness to your drawings, and it also will help you shadow them even more and enhance that 3D effect, which is our goal for this whole entire project. And there you have it. That is how you would shade a 3D sphere. I would obviously finish the rest of this out for this particular example. If you are doing a hallway or a flat vanishing point object, you're going to choose your light source, which is where the light hits. Wherever the light hits first will be your lightest side, second will be a medium value, and third will be the darkest value you have. So these forms, especially cubes, have kind of 3 different values on each side of the cube. The darkest side, if the light is hitting here or kind of in this direction, this would be lightest because the light would hit the most here, medium, dark. If you're doing an optional form, you may, if it's a flat form, you can do something along this line. If it's a 3-dimensional form, say like a snowman or an Among Us character, you would do something like this where you have kind of a slower fade from whatever spot is popping out. So I'm going to say that my light source is in the front of my hallway for this. So my front of my cubes will have my lightest value. And then my sides of my cube would have a medium dark value. If you do see some of whatever medium you're using on top of that Sharpie, you can go ahead and go back over it with Sharpie a little bit. Just be a little bit more careful about how and where you're coloring. Use sharpened pencils, and that will help you tremendously as well. So one side or face of my cube will have the lightest value, one side will have a dark value, and one side will have a medium value. And I would do the same thing. That will be medium. I actually don't see the darkest value on this one. I only see the front of my cube and the back. It's also kind of back in space a little bit more, so this one will be darker than the front one. So as you go back into space, things are a little bit darker than they are whenever you are way up close, which means this is my kind of mid-range one, or my mid-ground, middle ground. This one's up in the foreground, so it will have the lightest orange shades on it. It's up to you if you want to leave your backgrounds black and white, if you want to color them like a checkerboard with alternating colors or with black and another color, however you want to do them. I think I'm going to try something a little bit different on my hallway here, and I'm going to leave the ceiling and the floor a natural checkerboard. And I'm gonna do my sides a rainbow here. I'll finish coloring that in a little bit. So again, as you go back into space, the farther into space you go, the darker your colors become. So I want to do my hallway kind of a rainbow. So I'm choosing some darker colors to put in the background, and I'm pushing hard on those colors. I'm actually going to kind of let them overlap a little bit and let them blend out. I'm kind of using my spaces as guidelines for where my colors are going to go. But whenever you see this at the end, you'll see that I'm going to kind of use those also to enhance my value. So I'm going to overlap these colors. I'm going to mix them together a little bit. This is the more advanced version of this shading. If you don't feel confident mixing your colors yet, by all means, you can just stick with regular old shadows and shades. As I move forward, I am pushing down lighter with my pencil, and I skip my red that I wanted to use. So I will just let these pull out a little bit more and start to fade into my lighter values. So however you want to do them, when you're shading, again, just as a recap, the further away you get, the darker your values become. Keep everything, your pencil lines nice and close together so it's not scratchy looking, and your shades are really super duper nice and even. Maybe I'll even leave my hallway white at the beginning, and that will really make your drawing look three-dimensional. Have fun!